Hey guys, in this video I want to go over how to eliminate any sort of interior or exterior knee pain, so inside or outside, medial or lateral knee pain in your half pigeon pose. Now half pigeon pose is a great pose. It gets into the outer hip, it gets into the glute, and it stretches kind of the front of the back leg, the hip of the back leg. But what it can do is it can cause a lot of knee pain on the inside or the outside, because what happens is the shin bone and the thigh bone are on different levels, and then force is applied to that knee joint, causing there to be some pain. So I'll show it how it's traditionally kind of taught. Right, you want to bring your kind of left shin would hopefully one day be parallel to the front of the mat. For me, I can't get into that pose. My hips are too tight. So I bring my heel a little bit closer towards my hip. And then I'm just going to kind of try to square my hips off. So I'm lifting up a little bit, left hip back, right hip forward and down. And as you can see, my thigh bone here is lifted. My shin bone is against the mat. And then as I start to kind of lean into it, I feel a little bit of pressure. I don't have pain in this pose, but I can feel pressure to the outside of the knee because, again, my shin bone is on the mat, my thigh bone is lifted. So I'm creating a different kind of torque or a different kind of leverage to the knee joint, which is causing that pain. So for a lot of people, what they do to modify it is they'll take this heel closer in towards the butt and just kind of come up here, which I don't feel anything. When I bring the heel closer to the hip, I don't feel anything. Or they'll take it on their back. So I've kind of taken it one step further once I learned this variation. It's kind of a 90 degree angle. I'm going to keep the thigh and the shin bone on the same level. So I'm not working to square my hips off as much. I'm going to take my left shin parallel to the top of the mat, so parallel with this. I'm going to lean onto my outer left hip until the thigh bone is down onto the mat. So now my shin bone and my thigh bone are on the same level. My back leg is going to start at about a 90 degree angle. Right, and then I'm going to bring my right forearm down and split my shin. And if you follow me, you know I activate when I stretch. I don't passively stretch anything. So I press my shin bone down, and then I pull my left foot a little bit back to the left, and I can feel my outer hip turn on. Now I can press also my elbow into my shin for a little bit more external activation to the outer hip here on my left leg, or I can take my right hand into my foot. I can press the hand into the foot at the same time, press the foot back into the hand, and I feel my outer hip turn on even more. And when we turn the outer hip on even more, we can get into a deeper stretch. If you still want more from here, you can start to straighten out your back leg and then come up onto your toes and then roll this back leg hip forward and down, but I don't want this left hip to lift. So if the left hip starts to lift off the mat and my thigh bone then starts to lift, I'm going to back off this a little bit, but I'm going to keep coming here. I'm pressing my shin bone down. I'm pulling my foot back to the left, keeping it active. And this stretch also gets a little bit more into the outer hip, but the nice thing about the hip is that any which way I kind of just move a little bit, pulling my left hip back, twisting, or maybe I'm going to come this way a little bit, I can get into a different spot into the hip. But this protects the knee joint because my outer thigh, my thigh bone, and my shin are on the same level. This is the variation I default to when I teach it, when I practice it myself. Now another variation that I got from one of my fellow teachers, Suzanne Height, you can look her up on Instagram, Suzanne Height Yoga. But what she does is she has very open hips, so she might not feel a whole lot in this. So what she does is she'll take that block, she'll kind of sit up a little bit, put it underneath the thigh, and then start to square the hips off a little bit more like traditional half pigeon. So you can see my thigh bone lifts a little bit, but my shin bone stays down. So I have thigh bone and shin on different levels, but this block takes a lot of the weight, so there's not a lot of weight on this front knee, and I don't feel that same sensation in the outer knee that I felt when I was more here, like traditional pigeon, feeling the pressure in the knee joint. Okay, so again, what I find is the 90 angles here. To start, splitting the shin, press the shin down, pull it a little bit back to the left. Keep the activation through the outer hip. Straighten the back leg out, tuck the toes, and then use that to roll the back hip forward and down until it stops. And then once it stops, I just keep pressing into the shin, pulling it back, and maybe I fold over the thigh. Some days I like to twist. Some days I twist this way. I can take the hand into the foot, press them in towards each other. But if I'm ever going to come into a back bend, I will not take it this way because you can see my hips aren't level. And I do not want to take a back bend when my hips aren't square, or the ability for me to square the hips with the shoulders, or the shoulders with the hips, not the shoulders to the front of the room. But that's for a different video. Okay? Give it a go. Let me know what you think. Namaste.